It's clear the Orlando Magic have to do something at this deadline or very soon after. But how big do the Magic need to go, and what is going on in the rest of the NBA today on Locked On Magic?
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is February 2nd. It will be February 3rd, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it's trade deadline week. It's all anyone's talking about. And it's very clear the Orlando Magic need to do something. How big do the Magic need to go? It starts with assessing what we've learned so far this season. We'll get to that and a whole lot more to get you ready for a busy trade deadline week coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. And you can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Check it out again today at Game Time, Locked On NBA. It's trade deadline week. I don't need to tell you that. Go listen to our friends. Morning at Locked On Mavs, celebrating at Locked On Lakers, figuring things out still at Locked On Kings. We'll get to the big trades going on around the NBA, but it is trade deadline week. And it does feel like the Orlando Magic are at a little bit of a crossroads. It does feel like we have hit this point where the Magic season is in the balance for sure, but how they move forward is also at risk. I don't think there's necessarily urgency about where the Magic are situated and what they have to do. I don't think that there is necessarily a sense of do something or the season's lost. Because I think before we can talk about what the Magic need to bring in, we have to assess where the team is at. And so before you start yelling at me for saying, well, of course the Magic need to do something, I agree completely. The Orlando Magic right now simply do not have enough to compete at the levels they want to compete at. They want to be a playoff team. They did not imagine they would be sitting in 8th place in the Eastern Conference at this stage of the season. They did not imagine that they'd have lost 9 of their last 10 or 8 of their last 9, whatever it is. They did not imagine they would be the worst shooting team the NBA has seen in more than a decade. They did not imagine they would have the second worst offensive rating in the league. They did not imagine that being just merely average on defense. I mean, let's be frank. They did not imagine that they would spend a month being as bad as any tanking team in the league. That is plainly unacceptable. And while we can excuse some of it with the amount of injuries a team has faced and now just kind of working guys back into it, things never should have gotten this low. And so the Magic have to adjust. I will sit here. Let me say this like unequivocally, because I tend to do this. I tend to work my way around points and beat around the bush a little bit. Whether it happens at this year's trade deadline or in the offseason, before next season, the Orlando Magic have to meaningfully address their offense. This group has gone as far as they are going to go together. And I will grant you, and I will agree, that if this team were healthy, they'd probably be in the 4 or the 5 seed. If they didn't face any of the injuries they faced, we're probably talking about a very different season. But unfortunately, I look at this team still, and I think, how different of a season are we talking about? Yeah, the Magic probably don't drop all the games that they drop, but they also don't accomplish their goals. They don't break into the top 3 group right now: Cleveland, Boston, New York. They're fighting with Milwaukee for home court, which was one of their goals. And frankly, I'm not wholly convinced they're out of that goal, but They got a lot of work to do, and I've lowered my expectations and what I think this team can accomplish this year to just get the 6th seed, get into playoffs. We'll figure things out from there. A week ago, I would have said, oh, they'll be in the 5 seed until the end of the season, and then we'll see what happens the rest of the year. We are lowering expectations. That tells you something's not right. That tells you that that path forward the Magic were on, it's no longer opened up to them. And so that's where we have to start. Everything Jeff Weltman has to do has to start with that evaluation. Have we progressed the way we wanted to? Are we accomplishing the goals we want to accomplish? And if not, how do we accomplish those goals? Now, I have been very, very open about this. This season is not important. Let me rephrase that because people yell at me for saying this. It is important in that winning is still important. That you're measured by wins. This team is measured by its ability to win. It is important that the Magic make the playoffs. It is important that the Magic get exposure to another playoff series. What I mean by this season is not important is that this season is not the end goal. The Orlando Magic aren't interested in saving this season, only to the extent that they need to make the playoffs, which again, even if you look at the standings, I know Philadelphia's come on strong. If Orlando falls to the 10 seed, we got bigger issues than anything we're thinking about right now. I am still very, very confident the Orlando Magic will finish, frankly, very, very confident the Orlando Magic will finish in the 7-8 play-in game. Whether they have to go on the road to Miami or Detroit or stay here in Orlando and host a game to get into the playoffs, the Magic are going to be playing past April, whatever. I don't know what the day the season ends yet. They're going to play at game 83. That was my mission last year. Get to game 83. Mission 83, if you remember listening last year. This year, the goals were more ambitious. And Orlando is not accomplishing those goals. So again, the question becomes, how do the Magic get back on the right track? Maybe in the short term, get back on the right track. But in the long term, continue the upward trajectory that we all think they should be on. That's where we're sitting. Those are the questions Jeff Weltman is asking himself, or the kind of objective that Jeff Weltman is trying to accomplish at this trade deadline. How, whatever failures or struggles we've seen this year, how do we get ourselves back on the right track? Well, first and foremost, and this is the thing clouding the entire picture, Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner have to be healthy. Jalen Suggs has to be healthy. Very clearly, Franz Wagner's figured some things out, but he doesn't look completely right. Paolo Banchero, even 3 weeks after returning from injury, doesn't look right yet. And so the Magic, frankly, you could add all the shooters you want. They'd help. They'd create some space. I'm not pretending otherwise. The Magic need to add shooting and more meaningfully address their offensive issues. Frankly, even with the limitations this roster has, they probably need to rely less on Paolo and Franz so that they can ease themselves back in. They threw them right into the deep end, said, do what you were doing before your injuries when they weren't ready to. And frankly, that is a fault of Jamal Mosley. That is a fault of Jeff Weltman for not having a roster that could ease them back in, a roster that required them to just kind of hit the ground running instead of wading into the shallow end a little bit before they dove into the deep end. There are roster problems. The Magic are not good enough to be the team they need to be, especially with all the injuries. And again, if the injuries expose that, even if they were obvious, but if the injuries expose that and force their hand a little bit, then that's fine. That's not a terrible thing to happen this season. That's not a terrible thing to discover. It's like, oh, we do need another ball handler because what if Paolo and Franz go down, or one of them go down, or Jalen Suggs goes down? How do we generate offense? Because the defense is mostly going to be there. Even with how poorly the Magic have played for the last month, they're still 13th in the league in defensive rating, and we all acknowledge the Magic defense is stuck. That's because we expect it to be so good. So much of what we're talking about and so much of what the Magic have to do now is figure out how to ease that margin for error so they can have a bad defensive night and still compete. so that they can have a week where the shots just go in. So it doesn't, they don't have to put in as much effort defensively, or the defense doesn't have to be elite all the time. That's where we're at. We know what this team's strength is, and the Magic should be working to preserve that strength. But now they need to add to not only make Paolo and Franz's life easier, but to make the defense's life easier. That's where the Magic are at. And the Magic are looking at a 2 to 3 year time window. So when I say this season doesn't matter, it's that the result of this season, or trying to add a player that just helps this season, that's the wrong move. The Magic's goal is to build a roster, to build a franchise, to build a player, or find a player that's going to be part of this team for the next several years and help this team get where it wants to go. And that is ultimately contending for an Eastern Conference title. And so ultimately we have to ask ourselves, well, what is that player? Where does that player fit into this team? And how big do the Magic need to go? Obviously, it was a weekend of major trades on the trade market. Let's talk about the impacts of those trades and where the Magic turn, coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. Whether you're trying to get to the Magic game, let's say Saturday against the now new look San Antonio Spurs, you can find all the best seats. It tells you what ticket prices are the hottest, the best prices, and which tickets you should say, hey, wait on this one. It's a little higher than normal at this point. Their app is so easy to use. They have the digital views of your seats, so you know exactly what the court, field, pitch, stage looks like before you buy your tickets. And frankly, the thing that I'm most impressed about with Game Time is they have a ton of events. It's not just sports. You can find shows, even like obscure shows. I went to see Jurassic Park in concert this weekend at the Dr. Phillips Center, and it was a sold-out show. They actually added an extra day. It was so popular. That event, a like Orlando Philharmonic event at the Dr. Phillips Center, on the app. So really anything going on in town, you can find on Game Time. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. It is obviously a busy weekend in the NBA. I was trying to get work done, trying to get ahead on work, and then all of a sudden the Luka Doncic trade broke, and I was just kind of sitting there mesmerized for an hour trying to figure out if this thing was actually real. Then again, as I was driving home from dinner with my family at my mom's house this evening, the De'Aaron Fox trade broke, and again, floodgates are open. Feels like Jimmy Butler is going to happen soon. It feels like, and I'm actually checking my phone to make sure nothing's happened while I'm recording. It feels like the floodgates are starting to open, and a lot of the bigger dominoes are starting to fall. I would say this first and foremost. A lot of Magic fans did have De'Aaron Fox as a target for the Orlando Magic. I am on record for the last several months saying I did not think that was the right fit. I am not surprised that the Magic did not get in on that deal. I didn't think he was the right idea for the Magic because he's just not a good enough shooter. He's taking the ball out of Paolo and Franz's hands, like all those things. But that deal also involved one of the other potential Magic targets in Zach LaVine, a player who I think would have been a very good fit for the Magic. The only concern I have for him is obviously his injury history and then his contract, which will pay him $50 million in 2 years from now. Zach LaVine would have been a really good fit. Another kind of like spurty scorer, great spot up shooter. He's shooting like 40-something% from three on catch and shoots. That's better than any player on the Magic. Mo Wagner actually leads the Magic in catch and shoot 3-pointers at 38%. The Magic need shooting. I don't think I'm breaking news there. Levine would have been a guy who could spread the floor as a shooter and also be a creator. And you'll sense the theme that I'm going to talk about in the third segment about what I'm looking for the Orlando Magic. That's really what I'm looking for, is guys who can be catch and shoot shooters, but also create. Obviously, though, like, part of this question of how big do the Magic need to go is, do they push some chips in the middle? Do they push some of their future assets in and go for a big star to pair with Paolo and Franz? And I think we will get to that point. There are a lot of future considerations to think about. The Magic will be a tax team next year. They will not be an apron team next year, but they will be an apron team very, very soon. As we talked about with Keith Smith a few weeks ago, the Orlando Magic are in a spot right now where they have to make their move. They have to make a move, not the big move maybe, but a move. They have to start consolidating some of their young talent into players that help them in a major way. And frankly, when I look at the plan for the Orlando Magic, I do think there is a two-phase plan, or the Magic should be in sort of a two-phase plan to build this team up, or build this team's talent level back up. The first plan is, yes, go get a quality shooter, quality playmaker, quality creator at this deadline. I don't think the Magic need to go for a star. I don't think they're looking for an all-star. Frankly, I think that they are very, very happy, or at least unable to draw conclusions over what they have in their four main guys. Jalen Suggs, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Paolo Banchero, and Franz Wagner have played only 6 games and 84 minutes together. They have a minus 7.2 net rating. So I'm not going to sit here and say they're amazing. A 100.6 offensive rating, a 107.7 defensive rating. Most of that happened before the injuries. If you go after the injuries, if you go until the injuries, that quartet, let me just pull up the stats here because I didn't have it ready. The quartet of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had a minus 4.9 net rating at a 107.5 offensive rating. Only 76 minutes over 5 games. So they played only one game, that Detroit game, together, and things got worse for them when they were all on the floor together. So there are limited numbers that say that this group may not work. It would not surprise me if the Magic have made Kentavious Caldwell-Pope available. If they're saying, okay, we need to get a real point guard in here, move Jalen Suggs back to the 2. KCP's our trade chip to make that happen. It would not surprise me either if the Magic are like, we need to give this time to figure itself out. The starting lineup's fine. We are perfectly happy going into next season with Paolo, Franz, Suggs, KCP, Goga Bitadze as our starting 5. I think most Magic fans would probably say, okay, like, yeah, there's maybe still some playmaking and creation issues, but that's a fine starting lineup. The issue is off the bench. The issue for the Magic is off the bench where, Anthony Black was supposed to be a little bit more of a creator, and it's taken him a little time to get there. Cole Anthony is their scorer, but he's really inefficient. And, God love him. He tries his hardest on defense, but defense is still a struggle for him. And now Mo Wagner is probably out till December as your best scorer. The Magic obviously need more shooting. Gary Harris is unreliable. Jett Howard hasn't developed the way the Magic hoped he would at this point. Caleb Houston is just riding the laurels of one really good game. It feels like at times he's got some defensive skill, but Caleb Houston's a shooter who can't shoot. The Magic need more offensive players. And again, I've joked about this. When every piece of the Magic's puzzle is in place, they're really good. Everyone understands their roles. The rotations are set up to make sure that there are enough drivers on the floor to keep this machine humming. The Magic's bench and depth was so good they could outscore other bench units and give themselves a real shot at winning games at the end, where their defense really wears you down. The formula works, but knock one piece out of place, and it really felt like the whole thing collapsed. And yes, like Franz Wagner stepped up. A lot of guys stepped up when Paolo Banchero went out. But then when Franz went out, the whole thing really collapsed. And you could begin to see all these flaws, like Jalen Suggs. isn't a great attacker and shot decision maker. As the lead guy, put him in the supporting role. He's really, really good. Obviously, defensively, he's really important. Lose Mo Wagner, and you lose a lot of scoring punch off the bench. It's been a big thing for the Magic. And again, just because of the injuries, their depth has been hit. Guys are in weird and different roles. It's been tough. So the Magic probably weren't shopping for a star anyway. As much fun as it would be to imagine these marquee names, De'Aaron Fox, Zach LaVine, former All-Stars. I've seen Magic fans hit me up saying the Magic should go after Nikola Vucevic again. Vuce is my guy. I love him to death. Not for this team. That's not happening. Plus, he's going to be free agent this summer. I don't think the Magic are looking for star players. So I think what we're seeing, now that the star trades are getting done, now that De'Aaron Fox is off the board, now that Luka Doncic was never on the board. It's just a weird situation. Jimmy Butler, the Jimmy Butler thing's hanging over. It feels like Chicago is going to be in fire sale mode. We'll talk about them in a minute here. It feels like now we're going to start seeing teams get some traction. Like Utah is a great example. And we'll talk Utah here in a minute. Utah is a great example because they want their fingers in everything. They got enough draft picks. They're willing to take on some bad salary. They just took Mo Bamba to waive him. He would have actually gotten some playing time and helped them out. They didn't care. They don't care. They took Mo Bamba to waive him. They're just kind of absorbing players and hoarding whatever they can get. So now that some of these bigger trades where they might need a third-team facilitator, Utah was in on the Luka Doncic deal. They helped facilitate. They got paid a couple second-round picks for their troubles and Jalen Hood-Schifino for whatever's worth. Now they'll start maybe looking at, okay, couldn't move Colin Sexton in this deal. They didn't need Sexton. Let's go to the teams that actually want him. Let's go to some other teams that might be willing to give up something for him. So who are the targets? Who are we watching or waiting on news? Who do you need to set up Google News alerts for the rest of the week? I'll give you my targets and who I'm thinking about coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up, and there is no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With more than 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, Prize Picks makes it easy and fun to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Here's how it works. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. If you believe that, let's actually pull it up. I'm going to pull it up here real fast. If you give me a sec to look at some of the Prize Picks drawings for Monday's game. If you believe that Franz Wagner, if I can scroll down and find the game. It's not it. Okay. We're not going to popular here. If you believe that Franz Wagner is going to score more or less than 25.5 points, just say so. It's really simple. If you think Stephen Curry is going to score more or less than 23.5 points, that's all you have to do. Paolo Banchero, more or less than 22.5 points. Jalen Suggs is on the board here, even though he's still questionable, more or less than 10.5 points. If you believe any of that, all you have to do is say so. Plus, their Taco Tuesday promo gives you discounted player projections for even more value. And you can check out the promo tabs to tail any of the Super Sweet Millie winners' big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So what are the Orlando Magic looking for? Or what do I think the Orlando Magic are looking for? Like I said, I think that right now, the Orlando Magic are satisfied with their starting lineup. We can debate that. I think they just want more data. I don't think they're ready to give up on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope after one season. I think they believe his defense has been really, really valuable. The shooting's been unfortunate. But I think they're confident that he'll either be right by March and April when the team is competing for a playoff spot, or he'll be right by the start of next season. So I don't think the Magic are quite ready to give up on that dream quite yet. So again, I think what the Magic are looking for is just to deepen their skill depth. You probably heard me, during the summer, I talk about this a lot. What the Magic look for is skill versatility. They want guys who can play multiple roles and multiple positions. And frankly, this is an area where the Magic have really fallen short in building up their depth. They got a lot of guys that can do one thing or supposedly do one thing. And when you start to ask them to expand their games, that's when they fall short. And frankly, like when I watch this team, that's what I feel like is missing. Cole Anthony does this occasionally. And again, Cole Anthony has some shortcomings, and I'm not going to debate that. But what Cole Anthony does better than any player on this team is if he's feeling it, he'll go for 23 like he did Saturday night in Utah. He'll go for 35 like he did against the Miami Heat. Now, again, Cole Anthony fights and scraps and plays as hard as he can. I love Cole Anthony to death. His struggles are not for lack of effort, and not for lack of effort to overcome them. His struggles are just simply, he is probably too small for what the Magic need for him, and is just too victimized on defense. And so the Magic need a Cole Anthony type player, a guy who can go off on a random Tuesday. You're going to need those guys. And the Magic just don't have enough of those players. Like Jalen Suggs can go off for 25. They need Jalen Suggs averaging 15, 16 a game. They need Paolo and Franz above 25 a game. They need Goga Batadze at 11, 12. They need Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to be at 11, 12 points per game, making 3 or 4 threes per game. There's a lot of those guys that are falling short right now. And obviously, like Paolo and Franz are really, really struggling. So who are the guys that I really think about? And again, this is mostly coming off the bench, bolstering that depth. The big name that I've talked about numerous times over is Colin Sexton. I really think Colin Sexton is the primary target for the Orlando Magic. He's averaging 18.7 points per game. He's shooting 47.8% from the floor, 41.4% from three on 4.7 attempts per game. He's got a 54.8% effective field goal percentage. He gets the line for 4 free throw attempts per game, 4.2 assists per game as well. He can play a little point guard. He's been a point guard in the past, not so successfully, but a point guard nonetheless. Can play a little point guard, can attack off the dribble, can create his own shot, but can also play off the ball. The thing that I love about Sexton is as a spot-up shooter. Let me pull up my tracking stats here. As a catch-and-shoot shooter, Colin Sexton is shooting, if I can find my correct thing here on the NBA.com site. Colin Sexton, as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, is shooting 45.5% on 2.2 attempts per game. And that has been pretty consistent over the course of the last few years. He's really developed as a three-point shooter. So to me, what I'm looking for is a player who can attack, can score on his own, but can also play off of Paolo and Franz. I've had this debate with a lot of people. A lot of people say the Magic need to get a point guard. You end the Jalen Suggs at point guard experiment. And I don't think that's the wrong thought. But I think the Magic need an organizer more than a point guard. They need players with point guard skills, though. And again, like the central thesis of what the Magic are doing is positions are meaningless. We just need guys who can make the right decisions, make the right reads, and play off of each other in sometimes unpredictable ways. We need guys who are smart enough and have a high enough basketball IQ that they can just, we don't have to, we could put up some guardrails, but they'll play off of each other and create mismatches for themselves. Like what the Magic are struggling with right now is they can't get people to make the switches they want to give Paolo Banchero matchup opportunities, matchup advantages, and he's struggling to get downhill and create tension in defenses. They have to do that, though, because Paolo and Franz are the only two players who can handle the ball. So get more ball handlers, get more creators, get more guys who can get downhill, get more shooters to spread the floor so defenses can't just pack the paint. So to me, Colin Sexton is target number one. A lot of people have Cameron Johnson, and the Magic have been linked to Cameron Johnson by several outlets for several trade cycles now. Cameron Johnson is another one of these players that fits that fits the shooting need, although I don't think he necessarily fits the attacking and playmaking need. This year for the Brooklyn Nets, Cameron Johnson is averaging 19.4 points per game. He's shooting 49.1% from the floor, 41.9% from three on 7.6 attempts per game, which the volume thing is important. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was a good addition for his shooting, but the concern with him was he was not a volume shooter, and he has really struggled to find his way in this offense. And I think part of it is, A, the Magic don't have I agree. The Magic don't have an organizer to help make sure everybody's getting shots. And B, I don't think the Magic are a catch and shoot team. I don't think the Magic are looking for necessarily catch and shoot 3-pointers. They want guys who can create. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's best games over the last month have come when he understands this. When he gets the ball, he looks to attack. And he has the best 2-point field goal percentage of his career this year. So I don't think all things are lost with Kenny. But this is just not a team that's doing a lot of kickouts to spot up shooters. You got to be able to move and read where the defense is. And again, I think the Magic have hit a point where their playmakers don't always trust their shooters to make shots, and so they don't make that pass that they have to make. That's a debate for another day. Cameron Johnson, though, averages only 2.9 assists per game and 1.8 assists per game for his career. As a spot-up shooter, according to Second Spectrum, Cameron Johnson is shooting, pulling it up the stats here, 42.9% on 5.6 three-point attempts per game on catch-and-shoot three-pointers. Again, I'm not going to be upset if the Magic do go after Cameron Johnson for whatever the cost may be. It seems like it's going to cost you at least a first-round pick, maybe two. I'm not going to be upset if that's what the Magic end up doing. But I would question the fit a little bit. Again, what I am looking for are creators and playmakers. To me, what the Magic are missing most of all is another creator, another guy who's just got an offensive mind and a desire to score. Cameron Johnson would be an excellent shooting addition. If you traded him for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I think Cameron Johnson would fit that role better than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope would. You lose a lot on defense. I've not been a fan of playing Franz Wagner at the 2 very much because I think he loses some of his defensive advantages against small forwards. But again, the Magic switch so much, maybe that doesn't matter as much as I think it does. I think he would struggle with quicker twos, and so that would be my only concern. If you're getting Cameron Johnson, you're spending 2 first-round picks, you better start him. Colin Sexton, I think, is a guy you could bring off the bench. Colin Sexton, I think, is a guy you're probably doing Cole Anthony, Gary Harris. I might throw in the Denver first. I don't know if I'm quite ready to give up a first, but heavily protect a first or send him a couple high-value seconds for Sexton with Cole Anthony, Gary Harris. Maybe they want Jet Howard. You have to trade Jet Howard for that. I might go over the top on that. That is a much more kind of easy one to do. The other name Magic fans really like is Anthony Simons. Again, Anthony Simons to me would fit as well. My only concern with Simons, and the reason why I have Sexton over him, is Simons has just never been asked to defend. He's never been on a team that needed defense or cared about defense very much. So I would be worried about him integrating into a defense-first team. But as a sixth man, he's scoring 18.2 points per game, shooting 42.4% from the floor. He's never been a super efficient scorer. He's always been a volume guy. 36.9% from 3 on 8 attempts per game. He's a career 38.4% three-point shooter. He's recovering from a really slow start to the season. He averages also 4.8 assists per game. That's been tracking up as well. And then if you look at his catch and shoot three-point shooting, according to Second Spectrum, he is shooting 38.6% on catch and shoot. So not nearly as good of a catch and shoot shooter as Sexton and Johnson. He's a little bit better of a playmaker and creator. And again, just questions about his defense. Salary is a little higher than Sexton. That's also another reason why I favor Sexton. But Simons would be another big name to keep an eye on for the deadline. I don't think it would cost Orlando a ton. Gary Harris, Cole Anthony is kind of the trade package the Magic are probably shopping around right now, hoping to get something of value back for that. Maybe Portland wants Jet Howard. So again, you're looking at Cole, Gary, and Jet as your main trade bid at this stage at the deadline. That will also be there in the offseason if that's the direction you want to go. Gary Harris's contract is really valuable right now because he's got a non-guarantee on that second year next year. And then, again, this summer, I think you're trading Wendell Carter or looking to trade Wendell and a first for something of value. a little bit more there too. So again, there's going to be multiple bites at this apple to really increase the talent level and add to this roster in a meaningful way with players who are either struggling or no longer fit. So you're not giving up any core players in the process. The last guy I want to talk about, a guy that I had not really thought too much about until it's now become clear the Chicago Bulls are kind of going into fire sale mode. They traded Zach LaVine. They did not get a lot meaningfully back in return. They just did a straight salary dump with him. So I am curious if the Bulls are about to do a little bit of a fire sale, or are about to go into fire sale mode. I would be looking at Coby White. Nikola Vucevic probably going to the Warriors. I still think that's going to get done. I would be looking at Coby White. Coby White started all 42 games this year for the Bulls, all 42 games he's played for the Bulls this year. He's averaging 18.3 points per game, 43.9% from the floor, 36.8% from three. That's about his average. He's averaging 4.6 assists per game. A nice playmaker. I think he's better suited in a bench role as a spot-up shooter. This year, Coby White is shooting. I'm pulling up the stats here, so excuse me for delaying. Coby White is shooting 39.5% on catch and shoot three-pointers on 4.8 attempts per game. Again, just a great shooter. He's had big spurty games. I think, again, that's what I'm looking for. I think he would be a really good sixth main addition. Again, if you're looking to, essentially what I'm looking to is give me someone that can pair with Anthony Black off the bench. Share those point guard roles with him while you're still figuring out if Anthony Black is the answer. Can do spot starts when Jalen Suggs inevitably gets hurt. And then can be that bursty scorer, good tag team partner for Mo Wagner when he's healthy, but be a bursty scorer off the bench. To me, I think that is what the Magic are looking for. So you could see, like, we went through 4 names right there. A lot of options. Back when we talked with Keith Smith, he pitched Malcolm Brogdon. I think that is a little too short-term for me. I've had people pitch me Luke Kennard. Again, I'm not against Luke Kennard. I think he would help. It's just too short-term. Luke Kennard, Coby White, for instance, like Anthony Simons, I think has 2 years left on his deal at around at 20 plus million. Sexton has this year and next year on his deal. Coby White just signed an extension last year. He's got this year, next year at $12 million. You'd only have to really give up Gary Harris for him. Like you could do Gary Harris and Jet Howard. Ironic, I know. You could probably do Gary Harris and Jet Howard for Coby White and get that done and keep Cole Anthony and save Cole Anthony for another trade if you wanted to do that. I don't, do that. And, maybe they'll ask for a first, maybe they'll ask for a second. Magic have so many seconds that they're not going to use. Let it go. Coby White, I think, would be a really, really good addition. I've had people pitch me Luke Kennard. I just think Luke Kennard is too short-term. I think he's just, frankly, unplayable in the playoffs because of his defense. So I'm not interested in guys that are not going to be playable in the playoffs. Matt Moore on his Hardwood Paroxysm Substack discussed that the Magic may have contacted the Phoenix Suns about Grayson Allen. I like that idea, although Allen is on the smaller side. Again, he's an excellent shooter. He led the league last year in 3-point field goal percentage at 46.1%. He's shooting 43.4% this year on 5.6 attempts per game. He's comfortable coming off the bench. He'd give you that just straight spot up shooter. If you're just looking to upgrade the Gary Harris spot, that's fine. Allen is on the small side, not known as a great defender. That's my only concern with him. He's got 3 years after this one left on his deal. He's making 15.6 this year. He closes with a player option in 2028 at $19.4 million. So again, it feels like Phoenix is trying to shed salary to get under the second apron a little bit. I don't think that's the direction the Magic want to go. But again, we all know they need shooting. So bring some shooters in, see what happens. I think honestly, Mo Wagner is the kind of player that proves that the opposite of what the Magic's whole philosophy for the last decade has been, that you can draft athletes and teach them to shoot. The Magic should be thinking, which shooters can we bring in and teach to defend? Like Colin Sexton, I think, wants to defend. He's on a bad defensive team. The Jazz are better defensively when he's on the floor. It's not good still, but it's better. He's a guy that I think you can teach your defense and be fine. Is Anthony Simons that guy? Maybe they're willing to risk it. I'm not going to sit here and say yes or no on that. I don't think he has shown enough defensive intention or defensive intensity to make me think that. But then again, neither did Mo Wagner, and the Magic have turned Mo Wagner into at least a passable defensive player. So there's a lot of targets out there. There are a lot of things the Magic can do. There are a lot of things that fit the criteria that I'm looking for this Magic team. And so I think that we will see the Magic do something at the deadline. I don't think any one result has tipped the Magic over on that, but I think just looking at how the season has played out, the weaknesses that have become apparent, and how much the Magic are struggling to overcome them right now, it's clear first and foremost that this group's gone as far as they're going to go. And that like continuity has helped save this season in a lot of ways, but continuity has a limit. Jeff Bowman said it in the offseason. Continuity only works if you're winning, if things are working. Things aren't working anymore. And so it is within everybody's right to be upset if they don't do something at the deadline. I would say just wait, give them the offseason before you bring out your pitchforks. But yes, it is time to make a trade. It is time to take a risk on someone, combine some young players to bring in a veteran that knows what he's doing, that's going to elevate this team's talent and offensive ability. It's just time. And so it's about finding the right guy, being willing to do the deal, and getting the job done to improve this team's offense. Like, again, I love everybody on this team. They have given their hearts and souls to the city and this team, but this is a brutal business. It's time to make a deal, and we'll see if the Magic do so on Thursday. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Find me on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the listening podcasts to your podcast enabling device. You can find us as well on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, including what I hope I will be able to finish tonight, my annual Orlando Magic trade value column. You can check that out at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Follow us on Twitter there at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, I'm going to put some trade pitches on there hopefully tomorrow as well. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, you can also check out the Locked On Magic Daily newsletter, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. On tomorrow's episode, we'll recap the Magic's game against the Golden State Warriors that might be out early Tuesday morning, or later Tuesday morning rather than early like normal, because it's a late game. But we'll get to that. Until then, though, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.